Oops. I guess it'd be good if we start at the beginning. Are you guys ready to crank up?
Yeah, yep. Yes, sir.
Well, everybody, welcome. This is the, appreciate you being patient with us. This is the first one of these we've done. My name is Glenn Stevens. I'm the president of Traqmate, and people have been requesting that we do this for some time, and I appreciate Jim Drago volunteering to help us with the first one. And if this goes well and is well received, we'll do more of these, and we'll do them based on particular topics, as well as we'll have more guest speakers, and we'll do other things like that. For those of you who don't know much about Traqmate, we formed this company back in 2003, so we're coming up on our 10th year, which is pretty amazing. And while we're still a pretty small company, we've grown to be the number 2 supplier of data acquisition in the amateur and pro-am racing markets. So we're pretty proud of that. We're excited about 2013 with some new product and service offerings that are currently in development. And we're continuing to innovate with a new version of TrackView and Track Studio out in March. And also all new Track Dash, Traqmate Complete, and Traqmate Basic firmware, not all new, but with some new features. And we also have a new camera solution on the way. So there's some exciting things coming up. Hopefully most of that, if not all, will hit before the racing season really cranks up in earnest. I know those of you down in Florida have already been racing, but so what we wanted to do is I wanted to introduce those of us that will be on the panel here, and then I want to give a little bit of what I want to give some definitions, what types of things we might be talking about in the later Q&A session. So I was going to go through the definitions of the different Traqmate things. Everything we make seems like it starts with the prefix track, so people get pretty confused as to what's a track data versus a track dash versus a Traqmate. So I'll go through that so that everyone will be clear on what we're talking about. And then we'll hand it over to Jim to give us some words of wisdom. And then Andre, who's also on, will do the Q&A. So I think I've introduced myself. I'll give Jim a bigger intro a little later, but he is the reigning SCCA champion in Spec Miata, and also a car builder, and so he has a lot of he's used Traqmate in a lot of applications, and I think he can provide some real insight there. And then Andre, who does marketing, he's also our designer. He does all the beautiful graphics that you see on the Traqmate Track Dash, as well as a lot of the design elements on how things work, and in both the software and the firmware. So the first thing I wanted to do was go over this is sort of the agenda. I'm going to do an overview on the track, and then Jim will give his experience and some tips, And then we'll have actually a pretty long question and answer session. And if you have questions, you can submit them via the chat window. If you are using the full interface, if you download the little app, you'll have a chat window. Otherwise, you can just go over to your browser or your email and send an email to webinar@traqmate.com. And those will be collected by Andre, who will try to find the ones that are representative or really good questions that he thinks that people will be interested in. And then he'll repeat those back to either Jim or myself or a combination of the two to try and answer. Any questions that are submitted either before the webinar, which we have some, or during the webinar that we didn't get to, we will type up answers to and email that out to all the participants. We're also recording this evening, and you will be able to go back and look at it if you like, or if any of your friends did not get in because we were fully subscribed, or if anyone didn't manage to make the webinar this evening, we'll have a link on our website so they can come in and view it later. The way this works is obviously it's a one-way thing. We could have up to 100 people on this evening, so having 100 people trying to ask questions wouldn't work. So we're going to we have to do your feedback through email and through the chat window. It's possible in the future we may have smaller ones of these that are on specific topics and allow less participants, and then we can have it more interactive. So the first thing I wanted to cover, I wanted to talk about the different Traqmate products and the names of all of them, so we can hopefully be clear about what all we're talking about. These are, hold on a second. Let's try that. The refresh may be a little slow. These are the different Traqmate systems that we sell. The first one that we ever designed was the Traqmate Basic, which doesn't have a display, and it is just a little silver box. It has the GPS and accelerometers, and all the magic happens there. And every system has one of those in. It's called the sensor unit. So that's this little gizmo here. You know it as the little box that goes in the car. Then the next one we designed was the Traqmate Complete. We now call it the Classic Complete because we've come out with a new one. And that has the black and white display and the USB for downloading and gives your lap times on the display itself. And then about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we came out with the TraqDash, which is the color touchscreen unit that has sensor unit once again, and the much bigger display that records on the SD card. And so those are the different Traqmate systems: the Basic, the either Complete or the Classic, and then the TraqDash Complete. And each of those has the ability to expand and add on different types of interfaces. The one that we mostly sell is the TraqData Pro. So anything with a TraqData name, whether it's TraqData 2 or TraqData HD or TraqData Pro, and I think the next one coming out is the Traq HD 2. It's coming out soon. So anything with a TraqData has the ability to hook up the analog inputs, and many of those also have the ability to control a camera. The TraqData Pro for example, can hook up a GoPro camera and control that remotely as well as the analog inputs. And then lastly, the other element that we have is the TraqView and TraqStudio software. And there is some confusion on what's the difference. So I'll try to clear that up. Essentially, they're the same program, but TraqStudio has the video added into it. So you can actually play back your data with the video, and it's all synchronized. So TraqView is the free program that you can download off our website to analyze your data, or that comes with a Traqmate system. TraqStudio is an add-on. It's a for-cost item that can do the video integration as well as produce videos with data overlays, like you've seen, like you were probably seeing when we started this program. So the different elements in the software are the track map, of course, the video window, different graphs that you can pull up and overlay from driver to driver, the dash that shows what each vehicle is doing at that point on the track, speed, whether they're on the gas or the brakes, how much G-forces they're pulling, and then other things that are available in the graph section, like the brake and turn zone map or friction circle, things like that are tools. And as we do more of these webinars, I hope to be able to do maybe even a complete webinar on just one of those tools. How to use the friction circle to learn, to be able to refine your driving technique, or what's the best way to use the driver overlay to find areas for improvement. So that are the different Traqmate products and interfaces, and hopefully that sheds some light on that. So now we'll move on, and really probably what most of you came to hear, which is Jim Drago. Jim is this year's, as I mentioned, SC's champion. He has won the June sprints at Road America 3 times, and he's won his SCCA division, which I believe is the Central Division, but I'll let him clarify that when he talks. He's won that 3 times. A lot of you, especially the Mazda folks, whether they're Spec Miatas or RX-7s or 8s or any Mazda racers, would be familiar with the forum MazdaRacers.com. That is a great place to go for information on just about anything to do with setting up and running a Mazda. And the other thing that Jim does is he builds and supports the Spec Miatas. So he has, I don't know how many he's built, maybe he'll tell us, but he's built a lot of Spec Miatas, and it seems like they all run right at the front and are all very successful. So he knows how to design, build, and tune Spec Miatas. So without too much more, I guess I'll hand it over to Jim, and he can tell us a little bit about how he came to be where he is, and then we'll do some Q&A, and hopefully some more.
Okay, thanks, Glenn. Like you said before, we've been wanting to do this webinar for a while. I've been bugging Glenn to do it, and I'm a big supporter of Traqmate, and they've helped me a lot. So Glenn and I have talked about this, and I really didn't have too much of an idea what we needed to talk about or what people would want to hear. So we decided to kind of just track how I got into Spec Miata and basically just my journey through Spec Miata and up until now. And then afterwards, we'll do some question and answers if we could touch on some stuff that people are interested in. So I guess my story basically started back in '96. No one in my family was into motorsports or even into car racing. Didn't even watch it on television. I was always into cars. I had, back in the day, I had Trans Ams and a couple Corvettes, but never drove or never even thought about driving competitively. And I guess about '96 or so, a friend of mine was doing a couple of these DEs, and I didn't even know what a DE was at that point. And he asked me if we wanted to do one. And at that point, I had already been married and had gotten rid of my cars and was in SUV mode and everything. So most of you know I have my main business is East Street Auto Parts, which is a salvage yard. So I pulled an Eagle Talon out of the salvage yard and fixed that thing up enough to go to one of these DEs, and that was in, I believe, '96. And from about then on, I kind of was hooked. We went to one of these DEs, and I did that for a while. I did DEs probably, I didn't start racing until about 2000, I think the very end of 2003. So we did DEs for a while, and one of my good friends, Dave Stewart, who I did DEs with for a long time, he was renting a shop to this fellow that was building these spec Miatas, and I had never even heard of a spec Miata. My wife had a Miata a few years back, and I graduated from that Talon to a '93 RX-7 that I had driven for probably, I still own it now, but I drove that for most of my time I was in doing driver's eds. I did that. I had an NSX for a little while, but I really liked the RX-7. So with that being said, this guy was building these Miatas behind my friend's shop, and he said, yeah, this crazy guy's building these Miatas. He's selling them for like $25,000. And I thought he was crazy. So I went over there and met him. Turned out the guy was Jim Daniels, who most of you know was one of the founders of this site, and he helped me a lot. So we started talking about it. He helped me set up my RX-7 for the first time. I'd driven it for years, never set it up. So we figured, you know what, for $25,000 we could build one of these crazy Miatas ourselves, and we were going to throw our hat in the ring and just show everybody how great we were, I guess. Little did we know. So our first experience was with Spec Miata was at Barber. I'd say we built the cars and we went to a driver's ed. I think it was a Porsche club at Barber. It had to be probably spring of 2003. We were flying in that Spec Miata. We were passing every Porsche out there, and I had people coming up to me and telling me, oh my God, how fast we were, and this and that. And so we left there as confident as could be. Me, my good friend Eric Stearns, my buddy Dave Stewart. All three of us had driven the one Spec Miata in different sessions. All of us were doing pretty well. I don't remember what the times were, but on the way home I called Daniels and asked him, how our times were, and I was sure we were right there, and they had just had a race there recently. And come to find out, he told us we were 3 seconds off the pace. So I literally almost cried at that point. All I could think about was how I just wasted about $15,000 building this car and was never going to be competitive, and what a waste of time. And I think I asked him 6 or 7 times if it was 3/10 or 3 seconds, and it was definitely seconds. So we left there, and from leaving that DE on, I think a lot of people get into Spec Miata and racing in general, with goals of winning this or winning that. I got to tell you, I never got into Spec Miata thinking I would even win a race at that point. My only goal was to beat my 2 or 3 buddies that we kind of all joined at the same time. So, I planned on racing them, but I really didn't plan on going much further than that. So, at the end of 2003, we did a driver's school, and I think I finished 4th in that driver's school out of 9 people. And I was like, hey, you know what? I might not be that bad at this stuff. So I don't think there was anyone there other than driving school people, but nonetheless, it was a good experience. So with this newfound confidence, we decided, for our first real race, we packed up our cars and headed to Sebring in January of '04. So I had met Todd Burris for the first time. He had a really nice new orange BSI car, and looked at that car and how nice it was and how fast Todd was, and I think there had to be close to 50 cars at that race, and I finished 6th at that race. And man, I'll tell you, I left there thinking, wow, I really am pretty good at this stuff. I went off in that race no less than 6 or 8 times. So it wasn't so much that I was any good, but there were about 35 or 40 bad people there, and I think Todd almost lapped us at that time. And became friends with Todd there. He helped me with a lot of stuff as far as to learn the track and learning in general, and as well obviously as Jim going through all this stuff. So we left there again thinking pretty good. And third race, I went to Road Atlanta. It was my third race ever. And I realized right there that I got in over my head, totaled my first race car 3 races in. And again, I started thinking that this Spec Miata in racing is more expensive and perhaps more than I probably needed to do. But I figured I'd give it one more chance. We bought another car, swapped all the parts over, fixed it. And, it took me about a year to kind of get over that fear after I crashed that car at Road Atlanta. I didn't really, just went into turn one and dropped the wheel in the wet grass. Didn't really know what to do at that point. I don't think I had ever even gone off the track doing driver's ed. So it was not a pleasant experience. Every time I'd start to lose control after that, I would hit the brake instinctively out of fear. And it took me a little while. Like I said, most of '04, I started getting pretty good. I sold the car that I built during that year and built a new car in '05. It was my first primer gray car, which spent a lot of time on it and built a really nice car. And stuff started to click for me a little bit that year. We weren't national yet. We were doing our regional championship. And that year I won 5 or 6 races, which I won my first race in St. Louis at Gateway. And our division is big. It was big then too, and it's kind of split. We were running for the Mid-Am Championship, and Charlie James was running in one end of the division. I was running in the other, and I had won, I think, 5 races. We were tied heading into the bonus race at the end of the year, and I got to tell you, I drove 13 hours to Mid-America Motorplex to run this double race, and to date, that was the most important race that I've ever run. And more than any of the runoffs, to me at that point in my life, it was like everything. Which, it was funny looking back, but it really was. And I ended up, I think I came in third there, and Charlie came in second, which was enough for him to win the championship. And man, that drive home was as long as it could be. So anyway, that was a tough time, but I made good friends with Charlie and a lot of the guys up at Safe Racer who had become good friends of mine and continue to be good friends of mine. And then 2006 rolled around, and we started the national racing. And to date, I think 2006 was probably the most competitive that our class was. Now it's not really an issue to make the runoffs, and in 2006 it really was. And we all raced everywhere we can, and there was probably it was a tough deal even our small division to get in the top 10s. Went to the runoffs at Topeka that year. I won. It was the first time I had won the division title, so it was a big deal to me. I went into the runoffs for the first time, and at that point, in my head, I thought I had become a pretty competitive national driver. I don't know that I felt like I thought I could win the runoffs, but I thought I could be competitive. And I got there, and man, that was to date the most expensive week in my life ever for racing, even through till now. And man, it was just tough. The track was hard. Been there a couple times, but it was really bad. And then I'd become friends with Blake and a few other people, just through racing. And Blake was nice enough to show me his pole lap on video after the fact. And I've told a couple people this in the past, but I watched that video, and at that point I knew that I was not ready to compete on that level. I was not able to do the stuff that he did in that car. It was just really impressive. I don't know if he still has that video, but he ought to post it if he does. So, I don't remember where I did on that year. It rained. It was a terrible runoffs. 2007 rolls around. Similar year to 2006. Not quite as expensive. Won the sprints for the first time. It was a pretty competitive year for me. All the while I was getting a much better handle for the how to drive the cars and learning the handling. At that point, I'd gotten pretty good with the handling. Started to really kind of hone my craft as far as knowing what the car was doing, and just got a little bit better. A couple people at that point had noticed how we did the cars, and never really set out to build cars for people. People just asked me to build a car here and a car there, so I kind of started building cars, and I guess around 2006 or 7. Went to the runoffs that year and was humbled again. I had realized that my talent was probably not where I thought it was. I picked up the pace. I'd learned that track pretty good. I think I could have run top 10 at that point, maybe even a little better, but I was stupid enough to follow Andrew Cattell through turn 1 and test day, and don't ever think that because someone else can do something that you can, because I followed him, didn't realize I was going any faster. he made it through that corner. I didn't. That was my second totaled car. So I didn't make the runoff that year I watched, and that probably was a learning experience in itself, but it wasn't that much fun. So 2008, I think I started to get even a little bit better, won some more races. I decided that Topeka really didn't like me, so I decided to boycott it that year. I didn't go, and Blake was deciding to he was going to go. His car wasn't that competitive. We had built him a car, and for whatever reason, he thought mine was a little better, so I let Blake drive it there, and he drove the 6, but I thought was really good. And then 2009 rolls around, and they decided to move the Runoffs to Road America. And in my head, I really liked that track. I felt that maybe I could really do okay at that track, and we decided to make Road America almost our home track, and we really put in a lot of time at that track. And I say this on the web a lot, but I really think wherever they move the Runoffs to, if that's a goal of yours and you want to win that thing or you want to try to be competitive there, you really do need to make that your home track. And that's what we did. I think we hit every race at that track. I think I won every Spec Miata race that I entered at that track that year, except for the Runoffs. I finished second that year at the Runoffs. I'd won the sprints again for my second time. And, really in my head, I think at 2009, up until that point, I think I thought I was competitive and I thought I could do stuff, but I don't think I really was. I think leaving the 2009 Runoffs, I felt that that was the first time I really felt I could win that race, and I think I left there with a different attitude. Steve won that year. He drove well. I thought I drove as well. Todd Lamb and I, we had built Todd's car. He had won the NASA Championships twice at this point in cars that we had built for him. He and I had raced together. We drafted together, and truthfully, not to take anything away from Steve and their effort, but I don't think we had the car that he did. I don't know that he drove any better than we did, but we couldn't catch him. So I left there with the mindset that we really needed to improve our cars, and I kind of went on my own and started working on our own engine programs, and it's been a work in progress, but we picked up a lot of pace, and the cars got better with each time. And 2010, I had, comparable season, kind of about the same. In 2010 Runoffs didn't work out. I think I had a car to win. I think I could have won. We lost the motor that we went with. It was really good. I had a spare, but at that point we realized that if you have a spare that's not as good as your primary, you really don't have a spare. And I think I was running fourth and spun the car, but I wasn't going any further than that anyway. 2011 had another good year. I won the sprints, had a good car. Most of you saw the video from 2011. It just wasn't my year. Things didn't work out. Had an issue in the first lap, and so we just fast forward and moved to this year. And then this year, we built a new car. I started from the ground up. I sold my car from 11 to Jeff Rothstein, and we built a new car. The car was gorgeous. I enjoyed building it, and man, I'll tell you, that car has punished me since building it. We had issues all year, and we're working through it and getting it. And a couple of times it was right, but often than not, I had some issues with the car, which is really the first time we had a car that really had any teething issues. At the Runoffs, everything really came together. The car was really hooked up, and we were able to qualify in the pole and win the race. So it was a lot more fun after. I think a lot of people have asked me in the past, do you really enjoy racing? What does it feel like in the car and this and that? I enjoy after. I enjoy, all the bullshitting with your friends and all the busting chops. But I'm delighted to get out of the car after a race like that. I'm very happy for it to be over. And so that's basically where I started and where I went. One of the things that I like about Spec Miata and the class in general is there's been so many people that have helped me along the way that, like I said, when I got into this stuff, being in the car business, I knew about cars, but to tell you I knew nothing about racing or setup or race cars is really an understatement. I remember stories like going to the racetrack with Jim Daniels, one of my first 2 or 3 race weekends ever, and asking him in all seriousness, where should I put the worst flat spotted tire on the car? Not one. I think I had 4 flat spotted tires. He looked at me like I was crazy. He used to tell me things all the time like, You just don't know what you don't know, and that used to drive me crazy because how do you answer that? But man, it's just so true. And for all the people who are new to this and wondering what they need to do to get better, I think a lot of it is seat time and experience, and whatever you can do to get yourself to where you are calmer in that race car, which to me it was experience, but I think whatever you can do to get your blood pressure down and just relax and be calm in that car which will ultimately get you faster and make you a better race driver. Because at this point, everyone gets the adrenaline rush and everything, but I don't know what the percentage is, but I would say, over the last 2 or 3 years, it's probably pretty similar. But before that, I would say, my adrenaline and my nerves are cut, got at least in half at this point. So while everyone gets amped up at the start and this and that, I think that I've been able to relax in the car a lot more and helps me to make better decisions. So whatever you can do to do that, is a big help. And then, with the data as far as the Traqmate, somewhere along the line, I used the Traqmate for a lap counter, and I think I did that for about 2 years. And then, I'm pretty fortunate that I have 2 fast teammates and a lot of fast friends that, even if we're competitors, we also share data and still help each other, and like Blake and, a bunch of other people. And being able to lay those cars over top of each other and just asking somebody, man, I'm getting my butt hammered in this corner, what are you doing? All that stuff really helps. So one thing that I've always tried to do, and there's probably a bunch of people that, are on the website and stuff that I know, I answer any questions. People email me all the time. They're not customers, they're not this, and I really try to share, whatever I can to help whoever asks, because I do like seeing people improve and get better and enjoy this crazy hobby that we're all involved in. But I feel that people were nice to me doing this, and, Todd Lamb, Todd Burris, Jim Daniels, a host of other people that didn't need to be, and they really were, and they really helped me get myself in a position where I was able to win some of these races and really improve as a driver. So I don't take that lightly. I try to pass it on to whoever asks me. So that's basically my story, and I don't know if I didn't touch on, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys would have.
Well, thank you, Jim. At this point, I guess we will go into the Q&A, and these questions can be, we already have quite a few. If you would like to submit your questions, either put it in the chat, which some people have been doing, or email them into us. And I think at this point, I'm going to give this over to Andre, who is going to ask some for Jim and for Glenn. And we can do pretty much anything. I've got some example data that we can answer questions from, I hope, depending on what you ask. And there's also good questions, that we can submit to Jim here. So, Andre?
All right. Let's see if I can share this real quick here. Let me know when you can see this.
Got it.
All right. We have a quick question here for Jim. You appear to be at the top of your game in Spec Miata. Does the challenge of moving into another class interest you?
I'm sorry, Andre, I couldn't hear you too well.
Okay. The question is for you, Jim.
Oh, okay. I see it there. All right.
Yeah.
A lot of people know I did build an STL car last year. I didn't put the time in it that I probably should have, but the car was fun. It's very fast. Honestly, I've been asked, and people ask me why I didn't go to the shootout, and other questions about maybe doing Grand Am and this and that. I'm 46 years old. I'm very happy doing, Spec Miata. It's more competition than I could, possibly ever ask for. The cars are relatively inexpensive. I got a good handle on the cars. I don't feel that anyone will ever, dominate in Spec Miata. If you ever want to be humbled, this is the class to be in. I don't feel there's really any class that's any more competitive. Maybe there's faster classes, more expensive classes, but I think the racing in Spec Miata is about as good as it gets. So I'll probably fool around with the STL car. Maybe I'll do something else at another point, but I really don't have any ambitions. Like I said, I never got into this to climb any ladders or even, to be some champion or be a race car driver. I got into this because I like cars, and one of my friends asked me one day. So just not a goal that I had really set for myself. So I think I'll probably hang out in Spec Miata, maybe get my son started, and if he chooses to do so, but that's probably it.
All right. We have another question here. Learning to drive on a track by itself is overwhelming. At what point in which data elements should a novice use?
Well, I can tell you what I use. I use the track dash setup, and the first thing that I do, I don't know, we obviously use it for the easiest things, the lap timer, the shift lights, all that stuff I would use, and then what I really like about the track dash is the predictive lap timer. I don't know how often it updates, but man, it seems like it updates every 50, 60 feet or something. But that's a really good feature, and also the max min speed in the corners, which shows up in the in your display screen as well.
Okay. As part of that, go ahead.
What I would add next is, for somebody who's a novice, I would try to log a lot of the things that we do on the car, which when I get out of the car, that's one of the first things that I do, is we log our air fuel, we log our fuel pressure, oil, water temp, and we look at all those things right away to make sure the car is okay. And if you've got a friend or a similar partner, you can overlay your data with that partner and go from there and see where you're gaining and losing. I like to use the time gap versus distance is a really good graph that points right out. You can see right where you're gaining or losing against your own lap or against one of your friends or competitors.
We actually have a question related to that on how's the best way to do an overlay, and in just a moment I'm going to pull that up and show people how to overlay both with your own lap and with some other laps, and we can even pull up what a time gap looks like, because I think that is not a graph that a lot of people are familiar with, and it really is a useful one. So I'll do that. I'll get that prepared and maybe pull that up after the next question. Okay.
We have the one somebody's asking about just looking at comparing two drivers in the same car, which we'll probably show in data here in a moment. And essentially it's sort of the same thing on the comparing a single corner and multiple laps in that corner. So we're going to kind of see the same.
Data. When you guys do the data part, we can probably go over that.
Okay.
One other thing I'll add to my story, which you might find funny. My third race in, I had decided that I was getting beat on power and ordered a Sunbelt engine, and that didn't help me either.
That's all right. Glenn, are you ready to switch to the track studio there?
Sure. I'll pull that up. Okay, I'm going to take over the screen here, if I can make that happen here. Okay, here shortly you should be able to see a window from Road Atlanta. Here it comes. I think you're all getting that. So what I've done is I just pulled up a lap from a session, and it's kind of a generic lap here. So if you click on Setup, you'll see all the lap times, and these are not particularly fast lap times. So, but as you can see, they're relatively consistent. So one thing you might want to do is say, well, why is lap 6 here 0.3 better than pretty much all the rest of the laps? So an interesting thing to do would be to compare, say, lap 6 with 5 and find out, okay, when I did a really good one, what was the difference? Where did I pick up those 0.3? So, and this is a tricky thing that isn't pretty obvious, I think. If you want to compare 2 laps in the same session, what you do is you open that session twice. So what I'm going to do here is go up here and say add a driver, and then I'm going to run that again. So now when I hit setup, here I'll let it catch up with me. So I picked that same session again, and then when I click setup, got to remember to go slowly here. So now I have sessions here. So now if I'm going to pick the best lap in the first of the sessions, and then I'm going to pick, say, lap 5 in this session, and then I'm going to say velocity versus distance and time gap versus for those 2 laps. And I'm going to say OK. And now when I pull this up, we'll get some interesting information here. I'm going to make my screen a little bigger, so it's going to have to repaint for you. I'll give it a minute to repaint everybody. All right. As you can see, since this is the same person driving, they overlay pretty closely. But there's a couple of obvious places where the 2 diverge. And the blue lap is the fast lap, but it's interesting because it's not it's actually fastest everywhere. So that just says this driver is not super consistent. So the first divergence is right in here. It's hard to explain why that would happen on a straightaway, but perhaps there was a car there that this driver had to lift for. And as you can see, right here, there's a gap between the blue and the red. And there's also a different speed. So in one session, they was doing 109. The next session, it was doing 107. Well, as you're going in the red lap, as you can see, you start to lose time. This down here is the time gap versus distance. So this shows when you're going slower, you start losing time. So just that little gap right there lost 0.04 of a second. Not that much, really. So then as we go forward, we see the red was slower through here as well, through this turn. And we can see a couple of things. One is, if we zoom in, you can actually see that I'll let it catch up here. If we zoom in, we can see that the blue car has started to gain an advantage, so ahead of the red car. And then over here, we can see how much. We can see that it's now down to, by the time we get around that turn, we're down to 0.15 of a second. So that's pretty significant. That's half of the difference between those laps was all found in that first turn. Then if we get here, we notice there's also a difference. But in this case, the red car was actually faster. So if I zoom my window back out, we'll see that this turn, the red car actually pulled up some of the gap and made up most of the gap. In fact, right here, it made up 1/10 of a second at that turn. So this is just really useful for seeing where the one car or where you're gaining or losing time from one run to another. You wouldn't have to do this for all in the session. If you had two different drivers, which we have the luxury in Spec Miatas that we have a lot of drivers that we can trade laps with, but in other racing groups you do as well. Whether it's a fast person that you let drive your car, or whether it's somebody else that has a Traqmate that is in a similar car, you can gain some useful information by overlaying them. And then the other thing you could do is you could combine these all and say, okay, what would if I did the best I ever did at this turn, and the best I ever did at this turn, and the best I ever did at this turn, what would it be? And we do that by creating segments on the track. Move the segments around here a bit. And then it will calculate a theoretical best, and you can see if you did the best you ever did, it would be a 45 and not a 46. And you can even overlay that and see the best of that whole session against a typical of the whole session, and see what areas the consistency might be lacking, so you can practice. All right, I'm going to practice trying to do this turn over and over and over again this exact same way. All right, I'm going to toss it back to Andre for the next question.
All right. Grab this here.
Glenn, I'd point out that I didn't even know that you could put the theoretical best lap up there on that. That's pretty neat.
I'm glad everybody learned something. So, I think there's a lot of little intricacies like that aren't well known, even to people that have been using the program a lot. So I think as we do more and more of these webinars, we'll probably, that's the type of thing that we'll get into as we get people's feedback on the types of things they would like us to cover in more detail.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I knew the theoretical best lap. I just didn't know you could put it up in the graphs like that.
Yeah. We've got a question here, and it's sort of similar to what we were just looking at, but what's the easiest way to analyze how you perform driving one single corner in a session? I.e., if you did 10 laps in a session, you want to compare turn one of each of those laps. So switch back to you real quick, Glenn. And
could you give me that one more time, or is it on your screen? I'll read it here.
Yeah. Sorry if it's bring up.
So just to analyze one single corner?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll take that. I think I can maybe bring some insight to that. Okay, you should see my track view coming back up here.
Yep. That's good.
There's a couple of ways to do that, usually, or you can do it numerically. A feature that I think is underutilized is the segment analysis. So in this case right here, first of all, I'm going to pull up the brake and turn zone map. And this will show me where the driver was on the brakes and on the gas. And this will help me define what is a corner. So I'm going to define this corner as including, well, actually I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to the brake and turn zone settings. I'm going to say, just show me the turn zones. And this will show me where in that corner you're actually turning. So as you can see here, well, as maybe you'll be able to see if it repaints here. Let me give it a chance to catch up. All right. When you go to the brake and turn zone and select just turns, it will show you right turns as blue and left turns as yellow. So you can actually see where you turn in to go right or where you turn in to go left. So what I've done now is I've defined a turn, which is segment number 2, as just turn 1. So now what I'm going to do is go over here and go back to the setup window, and I'm going to choose segment analysis. Well, maybe I am. That's right, it's up here. And I'm going to turn on all the laps for this driver. And I'm going to say OK. Now what this is going to do is pop up another window, which is sort of like a little spreadsheet, really. I'll let it catch up with me here. And for all the turns the segments that I have defined, it gives me a bunch of numbers. Across all, if the All tab is selected, it shows you for the entire lap things like the amount of time you spent on the brakes, where you entered and exited, what speed you entered and exited that lap, which would be at the start-finish line. But since you asked about a particular turn, let's go to segment 2, which is defined as between 2 and 3. So we go over here and click on the segment 2 tab. Then we can see a lot of different things. You can see times. So from lap to lap, we can sort those. If I click here, it will sort them. Fastest. So the fastest that the driver went through there was 7.505 seconds. The slowest was 7.923. So 0.4 of a second gain or lost from best to worst lap in that one turn. Typically, though, as you can see, 7.505, 508, 530, 535, 537. That's pretty consistent. This is the distance traveled. So by taking different lines, you might travel, in one case, what's interesting is actually the farthest distance traveled was the fastest through the segment. That's counterintuitive, but it's possible that is because by allowing the car to track out, it scrubbed off speed and was able to traverse the segment faster. That might be something to learn right there.
Also, the time braking.
The time spent on braking, what I've done is I've just clipped the bit of the brake zone here. So I don't know if that's really relevant. But if you move that segment back and included the brake zone, then it would be very relevant. So how much time you spent on the brakes going into that turn.
It probably still is, though, because they're still on the brakes longer after that segment. That lap was probably fast because they're not on the brakes as long once the segment starts, I think.
I think that's a very good insight, is that this one means that the driver came off the brakes sooner because it's the smallest. So right there at that end of the braking zone, that means, driver came off quicker. Entry and exit speed is interesting. The fastest entry speed was not the fastest corner. And I would have guessed the faster you come in this particular turn, the faster you get through that segment. But apparently not, because you might have to lift in the middle of the corner if you're not going to make it, if you carry too much speed in. So once again, this would seem to indicate that slow in, fast out would work, because one of the slower speeds into that turn resulted in the fastest exit speed and the lowest segment time. So, I would encourage you to pull up this stuff. This is one of these hidden things that nobody uses in the program, but there's some really useful stuff here. And I mean, I'm going to scroll across, and you'll see the data goes on forever. All the different things that you can learn by just taking one turn and digging into what's going on there.
Got a few more questions for Jim as well here.
All right.
All right, let me know when this is up. Got a question for Jim. What's your methodology in using the Traqmate after each session, Jim?
I touched on that a little bit, but basically what we do is, most of you know that Pat Sandlin and Craig Berry are good teammates of mine. We kind of debrief with each other after each session. We download our data. We look at it, see where we had some issues, and then like I was telling, the first thing we do is, I'll kind of do before we even look at the data is go back and check our air fuel and all the obvious things, make sure the car doesn't need have any issues or anything. And then we'll do what Glenn was doing with the segment analysis, and the time gap versus distance are usually our biggest things. Or if one of us is having a problem in a certain corner, we'll pull up that corner and compare it to the other two. And fortunately for us, rarely is more than one of the three of us doing anything really that far out of whack, and we could usually look at the other two's data and figure out pretty quickly where we're losing or what we're doing incorrectly, or make changes to the car to make the car do what we need to do.
We got a question on you mentioned air fuel a couple times. Which air fuel system do you use?
I use the Innovate, but to be honest with you, I'm not really sold on it. Most of you know I have a dyno here, and we have calibration gas that we use to check our dyno sensors all the time. And pretty much every one of the Innovates that we use is calibrated incorrectly, and it's kind of incorrectly the wrong way. When your car is reading, make sure I say this right, when your car is reading 12.0 or so on the Innovate, it's actually reading about, depending on the sensor, 12.4 to 12.6. So in 12 numbers, it's not too bad, but if somebody's tuning the Innovate to say 13.0 or on a leaner number, the car is actually running leaner on every Innovate that I've ever tested. So we kind of set up our cars. I tried to skew the scale a little bit, Glenn, but I don't think I was getting it right, and I was a little bit concerned that I was doing it, maybe making it worse than it actually was. So I just left it alone, and then I would just kind of realize that. So where I'm shooting for, say, what we do on our 99s at 6,500 is kind of the number where I have my guys check their air fuel, and we shoot for about 12.3, 12.4 on our Innovate, on the Traqmate or on the Innovate, knowing that that's about 12.7. So
I have found the AEM is actually keeps its calibration better, and I used to use the Innovate too. I have a couple of them, but I've switched over and started using the AEMs because they seem to be easier to install. They record over a narrower range, so you get better resolution, and they seem to keep their calibration much better and compare with the dyno more accurately. So next time you build one, maybe you want to try an AEM.
Okay.
There's a question here, another one for you, Jim. What do you think the class needs to grow in the near future and distant future?
That's a tough question. We've talked about this a bunch in the web, but I think that Spec Miata is a victim of its own success a little bit. When I got into this class, the cars were definitely less expensive. More people could compete for a win. You didn't have to spend as much time. You didn't have to spend as much money. The cars were inexpensive and competitive as hell. That brought more people in, more competitive people. The more competitive the class is, the more time, money, and effort people put in to try to do well. It's gotten out to where, man, if you go out to any Spec Miata race, there's some really, really tough competition there, and it's hard to win. So as far as, my idea is, as far as getting the class to do better, I think the biggest thing right now is for the economy to turn around a little bit, and then stability. I think most of the people know that I'm on the CRB, and I'm involved with the rules for the club in general, but we kind of put in a 3-year freeze as far as the rules, because I think the constant up and down or campaigning for the cars was maybe hurting more than anything else. And it's not really popular, but it seems like the more national, as racing has gotten more and more national based, the cars are very, very close and very, very competitive with each other. Unfortunately, the regional cars and the guys who used to be able to pull their cars out once and twice a year and still be kind of competitive, they're just not anymore. And that's not good for those guys, and I understand that. But the level of the cars now at the front is closer than it's ever been. So I think if we can build on that, and basically what has happened is the cost of the cars has just got more expensive to be competitive. But if we can build on that competition and get through this tough economy, hopefully the class will pick back up and get going in the right direction again.
All right. We're right about an hour in. We can keep going with this as long as we like. So.
Yeah, I think I've got the conference bridge reserved for another half hour. So people seem to be still hanging on and interested. So I'll be happy to keep going for another half hour.
Okay. I think it'd be interesting to figure out. We sort of touched on this, but the question here is the steps from going from a lap counter to driving improvement, and I think that's a pretty, that's a big step for a lot of people, and I think a lot of people would like to know what you thought about that, Jim.
Are you going to answer that one, Glenn, or do you want me to take it?
You can take it. You've certainly gone from a lap counter to improving more than I have, so why don't you take it?
Okay, as far as most of the stuff is a little bit redundant as far as what I had said, but I had started with that hot lap timer, and I'm almost going to take that question in the opposite direction. I've gone from that hot lap timer to the Traqmate, to using my data a lot to get better. And then I fell, and this goes with video as well, and I don't know if this has happened to other people, but it certainly happened to me, especially at tracks that I'm comfortable with or good at. I got a little bit lackadaisical with it, and I did not go back to my data and go back to my video and see. And, I was competitive and running good times, but didn't go back to really look and see what I was doing good or what I was doing bad. So, and then, of course, I get back on Monday and, go back and I kind of look at my video and look at my data, and I see things, and I say to myself, wow, why was I not, looking at my data and seeing what I'm doing? So all the things that we talked about here, I wouldn't overwhelm your stuff with all the features that the system has. I'd start with the easiest ones. We went over and see which corners you're really losing in, try to improve on those corners, expand on the graph and see what you're doing wrong in those corners, and then kind of just get yourself in a position where every time you use your data system, get comfortable with one feature, and the next time you go back out, try to keep adding more and more things. And I know everybody gets busy at the track, and I think I could I could spend 12 hours at the track and only be on the track once and not have enough time to do anything. So I know that happens to everybody, but make time to look at your data and make time to try to improve yourself, and I think that's a big part of it.
Can I add something? I think that, as you pointed out, at the track you're hectic. It's all about making sure the car is ready to go out the next time. You're seeing all your friends, you're meeting people, you're chatting, having a good time, and that's part of the experience. You want to do that. So a lot of people have told me they get a lot of benefit by a couple days later, take all their data and sit down one evening and go through their data and see if they can find something. Or perhaps before you go back to the track, this is what I do. When I'm going to go back to a track the next year, I'll pull up my data and my video from the previous year, and I'm going to look over it really hard, and I'm going to say, all right, I think I can improve in this turn and this turn. I think there's a 0.2 possibility here and a 0.3 over there. And so I try to identify areas for improvement for myself and then set that as a goal for the weekend that I'm going to go out there and get those few tenths and see if I can can actually realize that and get consistent about it.
Good point.
This is kind of a product question. I have a Traqmate Classic now, and I want to be able to synchronize video with front and rear cameras. And what product and what's the cost to do this?
All right, I'll take that on. We have you will need a controller module, whether it's a TraqSync or a TraqData module, which range from $129 to $249. And then you will need a splitter to be able to split between the to add a second camera, so that's $100. And then you'll need the cameras, whether that's the GoPros or the new camera we're going to sport. Hopefully by March 1st is the replay camera, which is a bullet camera. And a lot of the open wheel guys have been asking for that because it's sleeker and fully waterproof, and we can charge it at the same time as we control it, so you don't have to take it down and charge it. And those cameras go for $300 retail. So if you wanted to add two cameras and all the interfaces, you're talking $600 plus anywhere from around $250 to $300 for that. And then you'll need the Track Studio software. We, from time to time, have had bundle specials. I think we just took it away because we were pretty close to running out of GoPro cameras. And when we do have a bundle special, you can pick that up for a substantial savings.
This is a good question here, Glenn. Maybe you can fire up Track Studio. Essentially what this person is asking is they want to be able to create an overlay and then save that overlay video and then be able to get rid of the raw video to save space on the computer, essentially. So maybe you could pop into Track Studio and show them how you would create a video, and then once that video is done, then it's created, and you can do whatever you want with the raw files at that point.
All right, that's a tricky question. I'm not sure everyone will want to do that, but I'll see if I can answer that question. It's I don't necessarily recommend throwing away your original video, but I understand it takes up a lot of space.
Right.
If we pull up, let me work on that, and why don't you ask another question, and I'll see if I can prep that so people don't see me digging around here for the appropriate data and video.
Okay. Hey, Glenn, one thing too that I just did that that person might consider is I bought a big external hard drive just to dump all my race videos on, and that's all I use it for.
I do that as well because you'll quickly fill up your laptop if you don't. And things are ridiculously cheap. For $100, you can get over a terabyte these days. Mm-hmm. So, it's well worth doing that.
One thing that Glenn had asked me to touch on that I didn't touch on when we were talking about was the different mindsets of qualifying and racing. One thing I would say is, as far as qualifying, the mindset that I take into qualifying, at least, is this. I go into qualifying with my first goal in qualifying is to get a good lap in. I don't try to, go out. Obviously, I try to go as quickly as I can, but first and foremost, I try to get one lap in the books because you never know what's going to happen. It might yellow the session or something. So I try to get one in, and then after that, I will push the car. And if I'm going to chance going off or making a mistake, I guess the level that I'm comfortable pushing the car is much more in qualifying than it is in the race. So I'll take chances in qualifying that I wouldn't take in the race, but like I said, first and foremost, I try to get a lap in the books. And as far as racing, I think a good mindset to take into the race is I used to go into races with all kinds of strategy, and I was going to do this, and I was going to start like that. I think that's nerves, and you really just need to throw that out of the window, because once that flag starts, all those plans go out the window. But the one thing that I try to do, and I preach to anyone who is asks me questions, is I try to do the fastest, 12 laps or 14 laps or whatever that amount of laps is. I see so many people who go in and they pass for every position and this and that, and you really need to be thinking the fastest 12 laps, the fastest 12 laps. A lot of times the fastest 12 laps is not, making that pass. It's not chancing that one corner to where you're going to go off the track. It's being fast and being conservative, using strategy, and being there at the end. So that's kind of the mindsets that I had into the race, and I wanted to bring that up before I forgot about it.
I think that's really good insight. All right, back to the previous question, and this goes to how to create videos, and which a lot of people do. And I do anticipate having a webinar just on creating videos and how to sync and share your video, because it is a little bit tricky. Some people, I think, make it trickier than it needs to be. But so what I've got here is I've opened a data session and pulled that up, and then I've gone to setup. I'll let the screen catch up here. I don't know why it's repeating multiple times. Okay. And you click on video right here, and then it'll ask you which video goes with the data. You do have to remember which one goes with which data session. And then you hit OK. Now, the other thing you can do is if you want to create a video, you get to pick which laps you want on that video. So if you want to replace the video with one that you create and have it still work in Track Studio as your video, you would need to create the video with the entire thing, including the outlap and the inlap, because the way that the data and video synchronizes is as an offset from the beginning of the data or the video. So if you chopped off 2 minutes and 48 seconds, no longer be in sync. So typically you wouldn't make a video with your outlap and your inlap, but only if you were going to substitute that for the actual video later on to save space would you do that. So when you say OK, it will recreate, repaginate with the selections that you've made. And then if you go all the way to the beginning here, I'm up to the beginning of the video, that you can see that the driver pressed the button to start recording, which wasn't in the pit lane, just happened to be on the track. Then when you wanted to create the video, that's what this right video button does here. If you click on that, it pulls up, and I'm not really going to go into all the things you can do with the video creation on this call, because that's a whole other call in and of itself. But that's how you do it, and you say start, and it will create that video. And if you did that, create that video over the entire range, you would be able to substitute that video for the original. Okay.
Got a couple questions for Jim, and a couple more data questions. Let's go ahead and jump to Jim's question real quick, and I will take over and show.
Well, do you have a data question that I need to prepare for? In which case, throw it up there, and I'll work on it.
Yeah. We have one question. How can I find areas where the car's handling could be improved? Understeer, oversteer, brake lockup. That might be kind of a in-depth look there.
That's really in-depth, and actually it might be over my depth. But so I'm not. I think I may. Once again, that's an entire hour in and of itself. So I may have to skip over that one. Other than to say, The G graphs and friction circles are going to be the most key to that, as well as we have a really nice tool, which is the video. If you have a video that, if you set your camera so that you can see drivers' hands, that really helps with determining, areas where you're getting understeer and oversteer, because you can see how much effort and how much wheel the driver's cranking in. But so other than those few high points, I think I'll defer that to a full hour, and maybe when we have a better expert than myself on car dynamics to answer that.
Jim, this is a question. You mentioned a few of the inputs that you're using. What all analog inputs do you track using your Traqmate?
Right now I'm tracking voltage, the wideband. I think I have a brake pressure sensor, and what is the other one? And I switched the other one around to oil pressure, water temperature. My friend Glenn tells me we're going to get a lot more inputs here in the next couple months, so I think we're limited to 4 or 5 right now. I forget what it is, but are we getting a new upgrade that we're going to be able to get 10 or more?
I don't recall having said exactly that, but we do have a project that will help specifically you and probably a lot of other people get some really some additional data inputs. And I can't promise it's going to be within a couple of months or more, but as an ongoing project, really working it ongoing to be able to accept OBD and CAN bus data that will give us a lot more stuff. So I kind of spilled the beans on that one, but that's we will get there, and then you'll be able to log things that the vehicle knows about, as well as ones that you choose, like perhaps a brake pressure sensor.
Okay.
We have one other question about just you had mentioned the update to the track dash, and I was asking when that was going to be available. It's just the upgrades to the track dash that we're putting out, where I got a new screen and some with a roll-up analog screen, as well as a whole bunch of stuff. And that is supposed to hit March 1st, because it also includes support for this new camera, and that's hitting. So our target is March 1st on that. It's pretty much done. We've been testing it. I tested it at the track last weekend, and it's working pretty well. So real soon now. Okay. Jim, this question is for you. How important is the brake pressure sensor in your analysis?
You know what? I put the brake pressure sensor on the new car. I hadn't used it before. To be totally honest, I haven't gained as much benefit from the brake pressure sensor as I thought I would. It's helpful, but I don't think that would be my priority to put in first. I think that if I was going to get rid of something, that would be, maybe I would maybe go to steering inputs more so than brake pressure. I would like to maybe log the shock position, all that stuff. Every bit of it's helpful, but I don't know that any one is the holy grail. I would say I'd rather have, that would probably, I don't know, in the top 5, but not so much one that I couldn't live without either at this point.
See, I would say exactly the opposite. I started logging brake pressure, and you can get an analog, if you'll pardon the pun, for brake pressure with just the the deceleration G's. But if you really want to see how well you're doing on that brake pedal, a sensor is really helpful. You can plot the application of the brakes, and then you can see how well you're holding the level of the brakes throughout the brake application, and then how well you're transitioning off that into throttle. And I know if you're working with a driver coach, and hopefully we'll have some of these with some real driver coaches on it. That's one of the things that they really look at, and they can really fine-tune your braking performance with that kind of analysis. So, I think you have to know what you're looking at with that thing in order to be able to get something out of it, but it really could be useful.
I will definitely look at it a little bit closer, and I think I've told you too, Glenn. I'm not too crazy about the sensor that I have in the car either. So it may be that I don't have the best sensor either, because the differences aren't as glaring as I would expect them to be. It's very similar. So I may try a different sensor.
Maybe you're just doing it right.
I doubt it.
We have a question.
We got about 5 minutes left. You got another question or two for us, Andre?
Yeah, I got it's a pretty basic one. Basically, I was asking where can we find data for tracks?
Well, that's I'll let you answer that, Andre.
Well, you can always find that at shareandcompare.com. That's going to be.
Can you pull that up and show people what that can do? That is a.
Jump over here real fast.
We spent a lot of time and cost developing this really cool database that nobody uses, and I think it'd be nice to for people to know about it. So since we got the opening, I think let's show people.
All right.
Andre, do you have another question while you're pulling that up?
I think it should be good now. Can everybody see this? Share compare.
There you go.
All right. Yeah, share and compare is actually right. Can be found right on our website. You can link right to it. And basically what it is our huge database of every track that we've been able to find. And we've got well over 300 tracks. And there's videos of almost every track out there. If you have a video that you'd like to upload, it's all built in. It's free, and so you can go and actually click and find a track. Has different countries on it. You can do a track search. We'll go here to the United States. You can just pick either one of these T's here and click on it, or you can just go to the track list over here. I'll slow down so we don't have a good refresh rate. As you can see, there's a ton of tracks out there. For instance, if we go to Georgia and Road Atlanta here.
So for those of you that have either a Traqmate Basic or a Traqmate Classic that need to put the start finishes in, those coordinates are here on the on each of these tracks. So we built all those into the track dashes, but the earlier systems you have to put it in, and it's a quick way to get them before you go to the track if you want to.
Right. And this is we really designed this not only as a database for the start finishes, but as a place for people to share their videos as well as their lap times. So you can see over here, you can see the lap times for Road Atlanta, and essentially as you upload your video and your data, you enter in your lap time, and then someone can actually see that data and video. They can download it, and they can compare it against themselves, and you can see there's a lot of data already up here. So if you can fly to any track in the world, and if there isn't any data and you want to be a part of the experience and get your data up there so other people can use it, it's just log in and it's free, and it's all integrated with YouTube as well. So once you sign in, you can even sign in with your YouTube account. So all the videos you've already uploaded, they're not going to be separate or anything like that. It's all integrated. this service doesn't stream video very well during this call, but if we were to click on one of these videos, it would pop up here and actually play the video. So, yeah, I mean, we created this really to for you guys to share and get better. And you can also find other racers that might be in your area and meet up with them and compare data and video and really improve. So that's the goal there.
All right, I think we're about to lose our webinar bridge here, but I wanted to thank you all for attending, and I certainly wanted to thank Jim for giving us his time. And we will gather up. There's a bunch of questions we haven't been able to answer yet, so we will gather those up, and we'll certainly answer them as best we can, and also consider them as actual topics for future webinars. There's a survey that we're going to be sending out. If you all would answer it, it will help us tremendously to get some feedback on what we did right, what we did wrong, and ways we can improve this in the future. And I think that's going to do it.
Okay. Well, thanks for having it, Glenn. I really appreciate you putting this on. I think it'll be a big help for everyone. If anyone has any questions for me that I didn't answer, you could go on Mazda Racers or email me directly, and or through Glenn. I'll be glad to answer it, and you could send my way.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Andre, could you capture all those questions before the bridge goes down?
Yes, I will do. I have a lot of them already in there, but I will grab them.
I just sent you a couple more that just popped in here.
All right. Got them.